2, ready, go. We might still have time. We might still get by. Every time I think about it, I want to cry. So I sang you this song that I heard from above, and you kept me alive with your sweet flowing love. Crazy. Gonna go crazy on you. One of my favorite songs from Heart from a long time ago. I think we're gonna attempt it. Probably not be successful. If you want to suffer to the very end, Dylan and I will probably pull out a couple of guitars and try it. I have no idea. Crazy is a story I want to tell you about. November 946 Romeo Victor just happened yesterday. I'm going to include some footage of this that no one has seen. It hasn't made it on the media. I'm going to show you the actual in-flight free fall footage of this. I shouldn't show it to you, but I'm going to tell you the story in this. I'm going to tell you what I think happened because it's a bad story and I think we can learn from it, and that's going to be included at the end. Crazy. This is probably one of the craziest airplane crashes I've ever seen. It just happened yesterday. September data, let's look at it. Here it is on the screen. In September, we had 28 general aviation fatals, and here's all the data from September. Here's October so far. Here's what we got so far, October. And in the last 4 days, we got a few more here that have popped in. 354 Mike Bravo, 34 Bravo Mike, 820 Romeo Charlie is not necessarily a fatal yet. And then yesterday, 964 Romeo Sierra. 820 Romeo Charlie, I have not been able to conclude whether or not this guy made it or not. And we'll know maybe by next week. But that's the last 4 in that. AQP for Dads is a video that I just put up in the air. It's a ride-along video. Here's a picture of it, screenshot. I didn't intend to video this, but it actually came out kind of cool if you want to read the comments on this. This is me riding along, delivering an airplane with a guy in the left seat who's a brand new owner, private pilot with no instrument rating. And you can see, follow along what happened to us on this flight and check out the scenario and what happened. So I think it's a very good educational. That particular video is going to stay up for a long time. I have been traveling a tremendous amount. Got back in off the road, had to go back out on the road. Ended up last night in a biker bar. Things didn't go good initially, but then I pulled out a trombone and I made some friends at the very end. Here's a quick clip. If you, I don't know, do you want to see this? Do you want to see it or not? I'll give you a quick clip because somebody shot cell phone footage of this thing here last night. Here, I'll show it to you. Here you go. So every now and then when you travel, if you carry a trombone, you can kind of make friends sometimes. Actually, last night, I actually did fairly good before the evening was over. I made at least one friend. So everything worked out really good. Let's go on and talk about what we got to do next. Last week's video, Think Twice. It's Not All Right. It was only up for 6 days. Here's the data that it got. It got 35,000 views, which is not tremendous, but it's okay. Got 430,000 minutes watched in 6 days. It had a lot of good information in it, and that one has been taken down as of yesterday. And we're fixing to upload and record and drop this one here tonight. Let's talk about AQP and Coffee. That's a Facebook page. I want you to join it. In the comment section for this video, pinned at the top for this video is the link to join AQP and Coffee. It's a Facebook page mostly to do with AQP for general aviation. I don't own the page, manage it, or administer it, but they are friends of mine, and I do have some input on that. We have done a very good job of keeping that page very nice and clean, AQP related as much as possible, and it's a very good page. AQP and Coffee. Now, I want to talk about going to Texas. I'm going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth area Saturday morning, November 5. A little bit of confusion about this thing because there happens to be 2 events that are about 15 miles apart. I'll be at Midlothian, Texas with Scott Perdue. at their coffee and donuts thing. That's not in direct competition with the other one. I simply didn't know about the other one. EAA 34 people are also coming to this one, and there are some people from Midlothian that are going to the EAA one. Two different places. This is at the Midlothian Airport. It's free. We're going to do a couple unusual things here. There'll probably be a banjo involved, and I'd love to meet you if you happen to be out there. Coffee and donuts is 8 o'clock, and now I think both Scott and I are going to say a few words about 8:30, something like that. I'd love to meet you, shake your hand, and let's talk about AQP. Let's talk about airplanes. Let's talk about staying alive in your general aviation airplane. Would be really cool. Now, a couple people sent me this video from pretty recently here. This guy in Philadelphia, Rebuild Rescue. His name is Jason. He wrecks his airplane. And the more I got to digging in this, there's a lot of really funny stuff. So I'm going to pick this video apart. I'm not really a fan of another Jason here. This guy's a student pilot, and let's listen to what he said about the throttle, his throttle position upon landing. Let's listen to this.
When I came to a stop, I did have half throttle.
So after landing, he leaves his throttle in. Now he's claiming that the accident was caused by a left flat tire. We know that landing a GA airplane with a completely flat tire is not a big deal, but you have to be a stabilized approach, touchdown in the touchdown zone, touchdown on speed, preferably touchdown with the stall horn on. If you try to touchdown with excess speed and a bunch of throttle with the left flat, this is exactly what's going to happen. I propose that this is what Jason did. He was going for a greaser landing, so he touched down long, adding throttle, and as that airplane started to touch down and he was going for the greaser landing, it pulled him hard left. He never closed the throttle.
I took off 2.9. Everything was perfect. I was coming down final, figuring, man, my numbers are perfect. My altitude's perfect. The attitude is perfect right down the center line for just a greaser. And that didn't happen. So right when I touched down, the airplane turned hard left.
There's Jason's mistake. Now, Jason is a student pilot only. I've gone back and looked at some of his other videos. There's some really questionable stuff in all that. I'm not really a fan of the whole concept here. This idea that Jason was not at fault, I'm going to listen to what you guys have to say about it, but the whole thing, to me, does not add up. Ironically, I was just at that airport last week. I didn't know it, so I didn't get a chance to go look at the airplane or anything like that. But this is a funky deal. Here's Jason. Here's a picture of his girlfriend, and here's a picture of his girlfriend's house. I'm not so sure that I'm buying into the whole rebuild YouTube channel thing and what Jason's got going on here. I'm not so sure I'm buying his story about the flat tire caused him to go off the runway. Now, let's go ahead and look at the October data that I've got up on the screen here. But before we do, let's go back a little bit and let's talk about this airplane in Florida, the Amphib. I called it as a stall spin of the traffic pattern. They're saying not necessarily so. I've gone back and looked. I've talked to the people. There were some power lines involved, but I'm still not figuring out exactly how this happened. Very experienced guy flying this thing. Definitely had an engine failure. Lots of roads available, and from the right downwind, he should have been able to turn right and land on the airport. How this airplane got over this house tangled up in power lines without it being a stall spin, I don't know. But I want you to know that I have not come to a firm conclusion. I'm still leaning towards stall spin and a vertical impact into that house. They're saying it may be possible that he flew it into that roof. If so, with a road right next available, I don't understand how you would end up in power lines over this house when you had a road, two roads available right next to it. So we're still watching that. Let's go on and take a look at the next one. The next one is in Texas 86 Golf Victor, a decorated war vet, a military individual. This guy's name was Jimmy Blackwell, 79 years old in Texas. I believe Jimmy had a medical emergency and he's flying an RV-12 and he lost his life in this RV-12. I believe this is probably some kind of a medical incapacitation. I see no other explanation for this one, the flight path that it had or anything like that. Our deepest respects and condolences to this family in particular. This loss is a big one for this family. Lots of relatives and kinfolk in Texas experiencing a deep loss with the loss of Jimmy in this RV-12 just a few days ago. Now let's take a look at the last 4 accidents in the last since the last 7 days here. I'm going to go ahead and start. Here's the graphic for it. I'll show you. Here's 354 Mike Bravo. It's an Edge in California. We don't know very much about this. This is kind of an experimental trike. Here's a picture of the airplane right here. I have no idea what happened. About 6 p.m. on the 26th. Next one, 34 Bravo Mike. That's a Bell 407 that ended up with a medical incapacitation. It's an oil rig with 2 passengers on board, with the pilot bringing this thing back from offshore. He pops the floats and lands. The 2 passengers make it out. Typically, when you pop the floats on a Bell turbine helicopter like this, the airplane eventually ends up flipping over upside down. Not a big deal. Everybody can normally get out unless you're incapacitated. I think the pilot on this was probably incapacitated as well. We'll know better because the passengers survived this thing just fine. They're in flotation gear and they got picked up right away. The pilot went down with the airplane and did not make it out. Why he could not unbuckle and swim out, I don't know, but medical incapacitation prior to impact is the only thing I can think of. Here's another one we're going to talk about real quick. This is a Zenith 820 Romeo Charlie. This is a medical, and this guy 820 Romeo Charlie, Richard Coles, 82. I don't know if he's alive or not, but this is a bad one. He had a engine failure off field. Look at the direction that he turned. He tried to make it back to the field, but he clipped these power lines, ended up vertical in the top of these trees. They said they life flighted him out and took him to this St. Elizabeth Hospital, but I checked all the system here. They don't have him checked in. I can't find him. I can't find a record, so I'm not sure if he made it or not. I'll let you know next week. I got him on my list because I don't really think he made it. He was in horrible shape when they picked him up. I'm very sorry to report this is a bad accident. Bad planning. Engine failure in the traffic pattern is not a big deal. He had tons of open space, and he pointed towards the airport to try to get the airplane back to the airport. Once again, hit power lines. Just like the Tennessee doctor last week, this looks just like deja vu to me. Ended up hitting power lines and going right vertical. And actually hit trees and went into this yard. He came close to surviving, but due to his age, I think Richard Coles was 82 years old. Now let's look at this last one, 964 Romeo Sierra. This is that Bearhawk experimental airplane. It's a 2-place tandem airplane. It's in flight yesterday. In front is the owner, a guy named Ron that owns the airplane. In the back is a mechanic, and they have flown together a lot. They flew in for pancakes on a Saturday morning at a location. They flew back out. The ADS-B data is all normal. Something really bad happened because the front seat occupant did not end up in the airplane. The back seat occupant, the mechanic who was in the back seat, they said he ended up in the front seat. However, the airplane impacted vertical. The actual pilot and the owner ended up quite a ways away from the crash scene. I think he either jumped or was ejected, but this airplane either exploded or caught fire in flight. I think he was forced to jump because of the fierceness of the fire. His body was found a ways away from the crash scene, and his body exhibited impact damage typical with a free fall to the earth. And I won't know for another week or two, but I think we're going to be able to figure this out pretty conclusively. I think this thing was on fire like big time before it ever hit the ground. Let's take a look at this video. You won't see this anywhere else, but here's the actual video footage of this thing in free fall. Those double streaks that you saw is a camera image error. That's not 2 airplanes or 2 sets of debris. That's just a parallax error. That's actually the airplane in free fall vertically. We don't see the other person exiting the airplane, but somehow the pilot, the guy on the front seat, did get out. He was either ejected out by an explosion or he was on fire and he jumped. I got no idea which one. Terrible crash. Both individuals, stellar members of the community, well-liked individuals, and we're very sorry for all of that whole accident. I'm sure there will be some investigation into this aircraft, fuel system, fuel tank placement, what could have caused a fire slant explosion of this magnitude in flight. I have no idea, but this would be a very bad situation with no parachutes on board. There's nothing you can do. This would be a bad way to go. All right, well, that's it. I appreciate your support. Airborne Animal Rescue is my website. That goes towards helping keep the DC-3 ready to fly. It also helps with my expenses. Every now and then I end up in a biker bar. I need to get a cheeseburger, as you have already seen. And I appreciate $1 or $2. Don't go extravagant towards helping that. Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. Any one of the four are free. $1 or $2 is very appropriate, and I appreciate that. If you can't do it, that's totally okay too. I just want you to watch the videos and help me stay alive. Time to get this video up and on the air. Crazy on You is the song for this week. I have no idea if we're going to be able to pull this thing off, but we're going to give it a try. For my tiny little, itty bitty, fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Grider, Probable Cause. Well, Dylan, we kind of backed ourselves into a corner. This is crazy.
This is so crazy.
We don't actually have this ready to go, but we're out of time. Let's go ahead. Sunday night. Let's go ahead and put this thing down.
Yep.
We'll play this through once slow so I can get an intro out of it. We'll do a clean break, and then
you are slower.
and then we'll go back to the top. So we got this kind of scored out because we don't really know what we're doing here, and I can't really sing
Before you
this song.
start, I gotta put the right hat on because this one's way more comfortable. There we go.
That's fine.
That's better.
Those people need the help.
They got better hats.
All right. You know, people are probably so tired of our guitar stuff. All right. Crazy on You. This is a cool song. I remember this from high school. I'll talk you through this, but you got the lead part, and then at the very end of the thing, you got to go back to the da 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 da. Okay.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. No promises.
All right, you can do it the first time real slow. Ready? I gotta have an intro out of this. 1, 2, ready, go. One, two, ready, go. One more. We might bad. All right, thanks for hanging with us. What do you think, Dylan?
It's good enough, as we say.
We'll see you next Sunday night, 9 p.m. with Dylan, the guitar player, on Probable Cause. Thanks for hanging with us.
Good night.